Hey there guys, just going to cover top laners for this patch now, and I think the two main things to know in terms of nerfs and buffs is obviously Camille's coming this patch, which is quite long awaited, and I've seen a few videos of her on PB obviously, and people seem to think she's just incredibly overpowered. Especially I think she has an ability where it makes her use a shield against armor targets and then like obviously a magic type shield against AP ones, which seems pretty ridiculous, especially being as I've seen her mobility as well, which is kind of stupid. I guess with most champions that I knew, they do tend to make them OP at the start just so loads of people would either spend money on them or want to get them and then buy the skins for them as well, and then they tend to tone them down after that. But she does seem like quite a fun champion anyway, so I have no issues with people doing that. So yeah, we'll get into the list in a second. The other nerf that or buff that I had is Garen, but I mean I find Garen is just kind of just a worthless champ no matter what, how much damage he does it or anything, because he's still so easy to kite and he doesn't really have any lockdown CC. He's more like a you can't really have tanks with no CC and unless they're just like absolutely unkillable and do damage at the same time, which I don't think you can find any like that apart from potentially like Dr. Mundo. So yeah, if we get into the list, I actually have it at number 5, and it's a really late game scaling champion, but I think there's been quite a few new builds on him that have been working out to allow him to dominate early. And one, I think the two builds that people are using, like the ZZ Portal build, where obviously he's just getting lane pressure, and the max E in lane, so what they do is just constantly pushing. And the idea behind this is that Nasus is going to scale no matter what, and the main thing you want is just to not lose before he ends to get late game and get this Q stacks up. So what you do is you provide pressure on the map and making the jungler come top lane, whereas Nasus isn't too bothered if he dies a couple of times. He's always going to outscale the other top laner, and it takes pressure off bot and mid lane as well to maybe do well in the game. This one, the reason why I put it at number 5 is he does scale well, but still he's kind of not great early game, and lots of games tend to be ending quite early. The next person we have in the list is one I would say I would only put here if you're quite practiced on him, and I would much rather prefer him top lane actually as a split pusher than in mid lane, and this is Yasuo. He does have some really good matchups and some really poor matchups, but currently I think some of the top picks in lane just allow him to scale quite hard. There's not that many early game champions that are dominant in lane that are being picked. So obviously Yasuo, yeah, I feel in terms of masteries I would probably go for Warlord. I don't think Feather's that great on him, and so obviously the lifesteal helps him to survive till he can scale up as well. So there's kind of Nasus and Yasuo are the two scaling ones I've got, and then next is one on the list which I think this is the only one that will remain in terms of tanks that are abusing Courage of the Colossus without obviously getting a nerf. Poppy I feel is just, she has so much utility as well as survivability, and that all if you're knocking people out of a team fight, you manage to knock 3 people out of a team fight and leave 2 for them to get isolated is just such a big game winning type ultimate. As well as the fact you're just building full tank, and with Colossus, he just means you can absorb so much damage, as well as having quite a lot of catch potential as well. Also with TPs, she's probably one of the most effective. Yeah, so I would leave her on that list. Not much of a carry champion, but just one you can be really consistent with, and you can do well in most matchups if you know the champion well. The next one is quite a surprised one. I always feel it's kind of stupid when he's never really in the meta competitively, but when he's in the meta in terms of solo queue games, it's kind of dumb just because of how abusive he can be against certain team comps. Like if he can manage to get into your team without getting CC'd or anything, you can pretty much 1v4 and never die with the amount of healing he can get off his Q obviously. Darius against most of the champions at the moment that are being played top lane is just really dominant, just because there's not that many ranged champions who play. Like it says poor against Kennen and champions like that, or even Teemo, which you don't see too much in solo queue, you can abuse him. But champions that are being picked like Aurelia, say, I'm not sure how well Poppy does against him because they don't play too much top lane, but I would think Yasuo would get destroyed by him, and then Nasus would obviously get wrecked by him until a certain point. So I would have Darius here. He's also quite a strong carry champion, and just with the wave clear he has and like pushing down lane, it's quite easy to take the first tower if you manage to get a kill on the other opposing top laner at all. And then at number 1 we also had him quite high up in the mid lane tier list as well. I would say in terms of something you're looking for in a champion to carry with from top lane, I'd say it's Jace, just because the fact he's so safe, you can play against any matchup, and the fact that he scales so well as being able to take so many towers. I think there's not really many weaknesses about Jace at all. If he's played in mid lane, potentially you're going to have a AD stacked team, which means they can just stack armor. But with him being played top lane, not quite often you can find AP mids or AP junglers that'll kind of even out the two types of damage. The scaling on Jace is pretty ridiculous. I know he got toned down with his W a bit, which was kind of done for taking towers, but I feel I can't see him getting nerfed too soon, just because it's the most skilled Jace players that can kind of abuse him. So I'd pretty much take Jace up as one to be like a one-trick pony with like Riven players as well, but I don't actually think he's too difficult. There are some tricks to him, but if you just played at a normal standard, he's going to be still an extremely strong champion. So that completes all the lists I was going to do for this patch in terms of individual roles, and I might start doing just individual champions as well now. So thanks.